You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 8. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
In this week's episode, we're going into one of our most asked questions, which is, I want to practice mindfulness, but I don't have time. How can I find the time in my day, which is so completely full, to be able to practice mindfulness? So we're going to go through some mindset shifts to see if we can help you to free up some time in your day. Let's get started. So, Josiane, we get this question a lot.
All the time, constantly.
Yep. So, can you talk a little bit about this mindset of, I don't have enough time?
First of all, that is just something that we are saying in our heads. We have time for whatever we choose to put time into. That's the first mindset shift.
That's so well said. Sometimes we feel like our schedule owns us rather than us creating our schedule. And it can help to mindfully step back and just look at what we're planning or putting into our day and kind of question, do I actually need to do this? Or am I just telling myself I need to do this?
We often tend to fill up our schedules with all kinds of things to keep us busy, but we don't often take a step back to actually look at whether these things are things that we want to take the time to do or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. One thing that's really interesting about habits, so I learned this in the book, The Power of Habit. It's really interesting and it explains how our brain actually develops habits. So I would highly recommend that if that's something that interests you to learn how habits are constructed and then how you can deconstruct habits that you no longer want and how you can construct or create new habits that you do want.
Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So essentially the way that our brain works is that we have to consciously think of something when it's new. So that means we're actually taking the effort to think of this new habit that we're trying to create. So say I'm trying to create the habit of practicing mindfulness in the morning. So that means every morning I wake up and I have to think, I'm going to start my mindfulness practice. And if I do it enough, so I do it every single day, eventually, I'm not going to have to consciously think about it anymore because my brain is going to recognize that this is something I do every single day. It's no longer a good use of my energy to have to consciously think about it. So it puts it into my subconscious or my unconscious brain, which is essentially just programming that our body has decided, our brain has decided, we always do this, so I don't need to think about it anymore. So it's kind of like when you're walking. In the beginning, when you're a baby, you have to actually think about walking. Then once you learn how to walk, it's not a good use of your brain's energy to have to go left foot, right foot, right foot, right? So your subconscious mind just does it automatically for you. And it's like that with any habit you have in your life. So it takes a lot of energy to create a new habit because you have to think about it. So what our brain does to us when we want to, start flossing or start practicing mindfulness or start working out is it has to use a lot of energy that it doesn't want to. So our brain loves to give us all sorts of reasons why we shouldn't start a new habit. So Josiane, I would love to know, do you remember some of the stories your brain would tell you when you were first trying to start this new habit of mindfulness?
It was always just telling me I didn't have time.
Yeah.
I had a million other things to do. So why would I add a mindfulness practice to all of those things? Which, like, in hindsight, were not that many things. Like, I still spent sometimes in the evenings doing nothing.
Yeah.
When I could have been practicing mindfulness.
Yeah.
And also I think because it's something new, it's like the brain is like, ugh, like, do I want to learn all of this? Like, I've already had a heavy day. I had to use a lot of energy already. Do I really want to get into this?
Yeah, exactly. My brain loved to play all sorts of tricks on me. I would end up taking more time to actually do my mindfulness practice than I needed to because I was letting my brain tell me all the stories first.
Yeah.
So instead of just, waking up, brushing my teeth, going straight to do my meditation practice and starting and then being over with, I would kind of contemplate, do I really want to do this? Do I really have time? Well, if I take 5 minutes to do this, then I'm not going to have the extra 5 minutes to do this other unimportant thing. It was always telling me that I didn't have time. But once I just decided one day, I was like, what if I just don't listen to that voice in my head? What if I just pre-plan my morning schedule? And no matter what my brain decides to cry about, I just don't listen to it and I do it anyway. And that's kind of what you have to do when you're making a new habit because your brain's going to fight against you.
Yeah. And I think that for any habit, not just starting mindfulness practice, but if you just do it instead of like dilly-dallying and just, wasting time, it would already be done by the time you start.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, especially like a mindfulness practice, it's like it can be a 5-minute thing or a 2-minute thing. Like when you look at the 24 hours in a day, like 2 minutes, what's 2 minutes?
Exactly. So I like that you said 2 or 5 minutes. So that was a trick that we kind of used to trick our brain into getting started with this, right? It's like, if your brain is telling you the story that I don't have 5 minutes, kind of step back and go, is that true? Okay, if I really feel and I really believe that I don't have 5 minutes, do I have 2 minutes? Okay, 2 minutes feels a little bit more realistic for me right now. So how about I watch my breath in silence or I just turn off my phone and close my eyes for 2 minutes and see how that feels.
Yeah.
I did that a lot in the beginning.
Or even if that still seems like too much, 10 breaths.
Yeah.
That's not even a minute. Like count to 10 breaths.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing was that once I could convince myself that I could do 2 minutes, then my brain recognized that I really enjoyed my mindfulness practice.
And you needed it.
And it started asking me for more. So all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm going to extend this to 5 minutes. And magically, all of a sudden I had 5 minutes in my morning that I thought I didn't have. And then I extended it to 10 minutes and then 15, not because I felt that I had to, but I had already started the habit. So the habit was already ingrained in a way that felt doable. And since it was already there, then I could start extending it to longer periods of time.
So how long did it take you?
Oh, that's a good question. I wavered a lot too. Sometimes I would say I only have 2 minutes. And then sometimes I would say I would kind of work my way up and I'd be up to 30 minutes. And then all of a sudden my brain would go, you don't have 30 minutes. And I'd be like, okay, but I have 5 minutes. So I always went back to that strategy of it's not all or nothing. I can find an in-between that feels comfortable for today. And even now, I like to have at least a 30-minute practice, but sometimes I will take 15. And then maybe the next day I take 45, whatever feels good that day. But the actual habit is so ingrained at this point that I can't not practice mindfulness.
Yeah.
Just like I can't not brush my teeth in the morning or have my cup of coffee in the morning.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to get to that point where like it's so ingrained that now when you leave the house and you forgot to meditate, like, and you're like, what just happened? Right.
Yeah. At this point, I don't forget.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say that within the first month, I made it a habit to the point that I was meditating every day, even if it was only 2 minutes.
Okay. It definitely took me a bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Maybe like 2 months.
Okay.
For it to be like like just natural. Just like I get up and I do it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, to our audience, like when you start this, just be compassionate with yourself. And if you miss some days, like it's just all part of learning, but you just have to keep at it until it becomes that habit.
And I think setting the intention around it too, like why do I even want to practice mindfulness? Like, why is this important to me? If you can really define why it's important to you, it's a lot easier for your brain to wrap itself around. Like, you can be logical with your brain and you can explain to your brain why it's important, and it might jump on board if you can say, well, I want to practice mindfulness because I want to feel calm in the mornings. I want to practice mindfulness because I want to, be able to control my anxiety. I want to be able to control my stress. And this practice over time is going to make my life better. And then all of a sudden your brain is like, oh, okay, yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah. And within a few weeks, your brain really starts seeing the difference.
Yes.
So now it's seeing it physically that you need this time.
Yeah. And that was definitely a tipping point for me when I recognized that if I forgot to practice my mindfulness practice, or my brain convinced me that I didn't have time for it, by lunchtime, I was like, okay, that was a bad choice, brain. Let's take 5 minutes at lunch to meditate because I need this in my day. And that was when it really became easy to say yes to my practice, when I saw the evidence of how it changed my days, how it changed my life, really. So Josiane, if I have a story around why I can't find 2 minutes in my day, and all of us do this. Like,
we do it with multiple things.
Yeah. Like, you're not a bad person if you have a million stories of why you can't practice mindfulness. But say I'm a busy mom. We get this question a lot. And I'm a busy mom. I don't have time to myself. Is that true? Or is that a story? And how can I kindly and compassionately dissect that belief and maybe start shifting my mindset around it? What would you suggest?
I would tell you, if you decided that you have no time, I would tell you then to use activities that you're already doing and infuse mindfulness into those activities. So, for example, when you take your shower, mums, that's sometimes the only time that you have to yourselves. Maybe you are fully in the present moment during your shower and you just use your 5 senses and really feel the water coming down onto your skin, and you just listen to the sounds that the shower is making, and you just don't think about what you're going to do afterwards. Just take that time to just breathe and just be with yourself in this moment. So that's what I would tell someone who really can't, get out of this story of I don't have time, because I think that what would happen over time is that when they take that 10 minutes during their shower to have this practice, they'll see how important it is. And then naturally they'll want to actually take some time during their day, and they'll make the time when the brain sees that something is important, it'll make the time for it.
Yeah.
So
I started shifting what was important in my morning in my story in the beginning. So at first, my story would be, I don't have time to meditate because it takes me X amount of time to do my hair and makeup in the morning. And once I started deciding that I wanted to extend the time I was taking for my meditation in the morning, naturally, I just had this shift in my own story and in my own belief system and in my own values that decided I would rather take 5 minutes more for my mindfulness practice and I'll swap out 5 minutes that I would have put into doing my hair. Not because I was trying to do that. It just, as I was compassionately doing this practice, I saw the value in it enough to easily be able to start making some switches.
Yeah.
Or, 5 minutes less of Instagram, or 5 minutes less of Facebook, or whatever it is.
For me, when I was teaching, what I did start doing was I was still waking up at the same time in the morning. Like, this was at the beginning. And I would just get to school, instead of getting to school 30 minutes early, I would get to school 20 minutes early, which really did not make a difference in the grand scheme of things. Actually, it did make a difference in terms of how I felt and how I was ready to take on my day. But as for for my teaching duties or whatever, it didn't really change anything. And I was still leaving at the same time at the end of the day. So I just shifted where I was using my time or how I was using it.
And I bet that when you shifted those, 10 minutes towards your mindfulness practice, did you actually get more done in the fewer amount of time that you had in the mornings? Yeah, because you're more effective when you're in a good headspace.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of went down the path that you did a little bit, where I started seeing the importance of it. And then I was like, okay, 2 minutes isn't enough anymore. So then because I believed in it so much, I started, and this is a big deal for me. Everyone who knows me knows I'm not a morning person. I started putting my alarm clock on 5 minutes earlier, 10 minutes earlier, and then 15 minutes earlier. And I'm sure I was still getting the same amount of sleep, like when you actually, look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Just so I could have more time with myself in the morning, because I just knew how important it was. And it is still, obviously.
And that's also, a big mindset shift too around sleep. Like, it seems crazy to set your alarm 5 minutes earlier. For me, at least, I'm also not a morning person. So the thought of setting my alarm 5 minutes earlier seemed like, no, absolutely not. But then when you actually deconstruct that, like, okay, is this true that I'll be too tired if I have 5 minutes less of sleep? Or can I just go to bed 5 minutes earlier the night before? Or there's so many, if you step back and look at the situation that you've created in your mind from a neutral standpoint, an outsider looking in, like, can I look at it from a new perspective and all of a sudden see it in a new light?
And also, side note, that I sleep better ever since I started my mindfulness practice. So like, it makes it seem worth it when it's directly connected like that.
Yeah, exactly. Something crazy that I did was I started waking up an hour earlier.
Okay, I never got to that extreme.
And I couldn't even believe that I was making that choice.
Wow.
Like, that was just so not my regular viewpoint. But I had gotten to the point that I was just slowly extending my meditation practice in the morning more and more and more. And like you, decided that, okay, well, that means I need to wake up earlier and earlier and earlier. And I wasn't forcing myself to do it. I got to a point that I saw the value enough that I was excited to wake up to do my mindfulness practice in the morning. That was a big shift.
Okay, so now for parents who have chaotic households in the morning, how can they do this?
So maybe the story is, I can't practice mindfulness because I can't find a quiet place in my house. So let's just look at other ways of looking at this. Can I go to another space that's outside of my house to practice my mind? Can I go into the car and practice there? Can I practice in the car at work?
Or
right before I go in?
Can I practice in the chaos?
Yeah. Can I close the door and set boundaries that when mom is in this room, she's meditating and you can't come in? Can I ask my partner to support me and ask him or her during this 5 minutes, please don't let the kids come in?
Yeah. Or can I start with the kids?
Yeah. Can we do this together as a family thing?
Because that would make morning so much more relaxed if the whole family started that way.
Yeah. What if I go into my child's room or children's room and when I wake them up, the first thing that we do together immediately is meditate? What if that's the new story?
Yeah.
What can I practice my meditation if I really want to do it on my own? Can I do it during my lunch hour? And if I'm not taking a whole hour at lunch, if I'm like, oh, I always work through my lunch, can I set boundaries and gift myself 5 minutes to realign and get into a better headspace that's going to make me more effective in the long run? Can I do it at the end of the day before I go home? Can I do it before bed? Our brain is always going to give us reasons why we can't. Always, always, always. And that's okay. That's just how our brain works. Don't be upset at your brain. Don't think that you're bad because your brain's doing it. But you do have the ability to question your beliefs.
Yeah.
Question if it's true.
So also, Kaylee, I'm wondering about teachers who would love to start mindfulness with their kiddos, but can't seem to make the time for it because, you know how classrooms are, like just the chaos and all the curriculum to get through. And there's just so much, or like this issue that's happening between two kids, all the social emotional needs, it's like never ending, or all the questioning that kids are doing, like asking the teacher if they can do this or that. What's the answer there?
I think the first thing to ask yourself is, what are my values and what do I want to share with my students? So any obstacles that might be in my way, telling me that I don't have enough time because I have to do this other thing, is that other thing actually more important to me? Like, is it more important to me to start the day right away with multiplication tables? Or is it more important to me to help my students get into the brainwave state that allows them to learn more efficiently?
Yeah. And also, what knowledge will be useful, what skills, I should say, will be useful for my students in the long run, in the long term?
Can I teach them how to recognize their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own beliefs? And can I teach them how to understand themselves enough to know what are the best conditions in which they can learn? Like, can I give them the gift of self-awareness so that they can choose to be better learners, or they can choose what their interests are and really know what their interests are and work towards those things? Is it more important for me to fill their day with stuff? Or is it more important to me to help them lead mentally healthy lives? Give them tools that are lifelong, that can support them. We can put ourselves into the shoes of the student. When I was that age, if I had these mindfulness skills, how would my life have changed? If you were in, high level sports or played an instrument, or think of all those times that stress came into your life as a young child. Man, if I had tools, things would have been different. What about when I went into university and was so overwhelmed? If I had entered into university with skills that I had been taught in school for how to manage stress, wow, things would have been different.
Yeah. And also not just on the emotional, mental side, but also there is research out there that shows that students who practice mindfulness, they do better academically.
Yeah. Exactly. And it just makes sense.
Yeah.
When you are too busy thinking of the stresses in your life, or, you're having trouble focusing because you have thoughts that are pulling you in different directions, you can't learn. Like if I come to school in the morning and I'm stressed out because, life at home is really difficult, how am I supposed to learn if my basic needs aren't met?
Yeah, it's like the Maslow's pyramid, right?
Exactly, exactly. We have to satisfy those basic needs, and, mental health and tools for self-regulation is one of those basic needs that help us flourish and move forward once we have that foundation. So really, any barrier that we feel against doing this practice, if we choose that it's important to us. If it's not important to you, don't do it. Don't even worry about it. If you're like, mindfulness isn't my thing, like, just don't do it. But if it is your thing and it's important to you, but you feel that there's barriers in your life that are stopping you, maybe just look at those barriers from a different perspective. And can I dissect it and see if it's really true? And it's going to be hard to make new habits because that's just how the brain works. So have compassion for yourself, have fun with it, and enjoy seeing yourself flourish and feel great as you start with maybe 30 seconds and move your way up to whatever length feels good for you. So thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us. We really hope that this can help you out. We would love to connect with you on this topic because it is so huge. We get these questions all the time, and we are always in our own lives looking at these stories that we're telling ourselves. So Josiane, how can they connect with us on this topic?
They can connect with us on Instagram at educalm, EDUCALME.
You guys can comment on our posts or send us a direct message. We had a great time with you this week, and we're so excited to chat with you again next Monday.
Have a good week.